Howdy, I'm Sadie Mae with the Awesome Orange. And if you follow me on Instagram, you know I have been completely making over my back patio. And when we demoed the old patio, I saved the wood in hopes of repurposing it one day. Well, today I'm going to show you how I turned it from this into that. Since I'm using reclaimed wood, I started by measuring what I had to come up with my table size. And I got really excited when I found out I had enough wood for my desired table size, 72 inches by 30. So, a dance was in order. Once I got the wood into the shop, I made a cut list and realized this table only has 16 parts. And if you aren't using reclaimed 2x8s like me, you can get away with building this using only a miter saw, a pocket hole jig, and a drill. Definitely a simple DIY outdoor dining table. And the plans on my website give you 2 shopping list options for the wood based on the tools that you might have. Now that I know the size and how many pieces of wood I need, I started looking over the boards to make sure there weren't any nails or screws left in them, and also to pick out which ones I wanted for the legs and which ones I wanted for the top. Once that was done, it was time to start cutting. First, I ripped the boards that were going to make up the base to 3.5 inches wide, the same as a 2x4, which if you don't have a table saw, you can skip this step and just use 2x4s for the base. Up next, I cut all the base pieces to length at the miter saw station. And you'll find a full cut list available with the plans on my website. And if you notice, I used a framing square and a couple of clamps to make a stop, so it was easier to make more accurate and repeatable cuts. Okay, this part never gets old. Pulling out my flip-top workbench from the modular miter saw station to reveal my Craig Foreman. I just love this space-saving design. Oh, and plans for this are also available on my website. I'll leave a link in the description box below. Alright, so now that the Foreman's all set up, it's pocket hole time. Now assembly time. You'll notice I'm using Titebond 3 and blue pocket hole screws because they are both rated for exterior use. I'm also facing the pocket holes so they won't be seen after assembly. Notice here, again, the pocket holes are facing in the direction that you're not going to be able to see them when the table's put together. And on to the next leg, do the exact same thing. Next was adding the apron pieces to the legs. I wanted to do this so that the pocket holes would face up and you wouldn't ever be able to see them. But as you can see here, I was having some difficulty with that, and after the fact, I figured out I could have just screwed a piece of scrap wood to the edge of those and helped me clamp it in place and screw it all together. But I didn't, so my pocket holes ended up facing down, but I do have instructions on how to do this in the plans on my website. But either way you do it, it's really not that big of a deal because they are underneath the table, and how many people are actually going to go under there to see if you can see your pocket holes or not? Alright, now we have a base. I always have to do the standard wiggle test on it too, see how strong it is. Looks good to me. Now we just need to add a couple of supports and the base will be done. I like to measure and cut these cross supports once everything's together, just so I can make sure I get a nice tight fit in there once everything's assembled. And once I've snuck up on a nice tight fit that I like, I'll go ahead and put the pocket hole screws in those cross supports and then get those installed using wood glue and the 2.5-inch pocket hole screws like we did before with the legs. And now that the base is completely done, it's time to lay out the top planks and check out the spacing on them and the overhang and just make sure that everything's looking good, and then we will trim those to the final length. But in order to get those cut, we got to put this forming away, so we just got to put it all back, flip it back down, and roll it back to its hiding spot in the modular miter station. Okay, now for everybody's favorite part, sanding. And let me tell you, there was a lot of sanding. Reclaimed wood, you just gotta make sure you get it nice and splinter free is what my goal was here. But my new contraption with the hose and the cord up on the garage loop worked out awesomely, made it a lot easier and more comfortable for all that sanding. Oh, and more sanding, the base as well. Oh, sanding. Well, now that the sanding's done, it's time to move the base back over to the workbench so we can attach the top. And I'm going to do this in such a way that anybody can do it. You don't need any special tools, and it's still going to allow for wood movement because we want to make sure we do that, especially since it's going to be outside and the moisture is going to change much more frequently than it would inside the house. So I did this by laying out holes so that there would be basically 2 screws in each board with a 1/4-inch gap in between each board, allowing for drainage. And then I drilled in a 1/2-inch hole, just like a 1/4 of an inch way down, because I wanted my screws to be inset or flush with the top so they wouldn't stick below. You don't have to do that step, I just felt like doing it. Then once you have those holes, you're going to drill another hole, I believe it's 3/8 inch, through that. So it's going to be bigger than what your screw size is. And I have all the details in my plans with specific numbers and whatnot there. So again, that's a 3/8 drill bit going through there, and that's going all the way through the apron piece. So once all those are drilled, it'll look like this. You'll be able to see all the way through the apron, and the screw with the washer head will be able to wobble inside there. And that little space is going to allow the wood to expand and contract with the moisture in the air. And then last step before finish, I brought the base back out to my floor space and got ready to, well, did a little happy dance first because it all looks good, and then we're gonna start adding the tops onto it. And this first board is going to be the most important board because we're going to reference all the other boards off of it. So you want to make sure that you have the correct overhang on the sides and the ends that you like, and then we're going to clamp it down to the apron and then screw it in from the bottom. So through those holes that we created with those washers. And you can see here I just used some scrap wood that was all the same width. It's actually some shiplap that had like 1/4 inch edge pieces on it. I used those to get me the consistent spacing in between each board. And again, since it's an outdoor table, I wanted to make sure that we had enough room for drainage and expansion and contraction wouldn't be a problem and pushing on each other's boards. So again, screw them all in from underneath, and then we have a finished table. Next up was a mineral spirits bath, just to get all the excess dust off of it. And lastly, it was time for finish. The patina on this wood looked awesome, so I didn't want to cover it up with any stain, so I decided to go with a clear polyurethane water-based finish so we could keep it as natural as possible. And I just love how it turned out. And boy, did this table really drink up that polyurethane. Gave it about 3 coats, and then it was good to go on the back porch. I am in love with my new table, and if you are too, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel because more DIY projects and building awesome adventures will be coming soon. Have an awesome day.